So let me start again. Polydisk and your attribute editor or channel box, make it rotate on the x-axis 90 degrees, 90 degrees, so that it is facing this direction. We want to now scale it to match the size of the eye. So we want to scale it to match the size of the eye. Okay. And want to bring it forward, be in front, so that we can see it here in our perspective view. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now to smoothen, because if you look at it, it has this kind of box-like concept. So under the attributes of polydisk, I want to make sides 4. I want to make 4 sides so that it's more distributed uniformly. That is, the subdivisions are more distributed. Okay. Next, I want to extrude all these faces out to create a thickness for the disk. So I'm going to I can go to my modeling toolkit and click extrude, or edit mesh, extrude, the same thing. So I'm just going to click extrude and pull out on the z-axis the arrow itself, pulling out in the direction of the arrow, where the arrow is facing, to create some level of thickness. Not very much, just small level of thickness there. And then I press Q to come out of the extrude tool. Q will make me pick my select tool. All right, now I want to select all this loop here. That's all the faces on the sides. It will be very tasking to click and be moving one by one. It will be very tasking that way. So what I'm going to do is a shortcut Maya uses to select loops, or that's, yeah, make selections along loops. So I will click on one of the faces. I will hold shift and click twice on the next face beside it along that loop. So when you click twice, it makes a loop selection. Do we all have that loop selection now? If you have the loop selection, click on bevel in your modeling toolkit, bevel. Now you can add more segments to the bevel and the whole loop. Add the bevel, reduce the fraction to like 0.9, and add like 3 segments. We want to make it a little bit rounded, since from our profile that is a button. So buttons kind of have a little bit of roundness around the edges. They are not just flat, although there are some that are, but want to use something not flat. So fraction of 0.9, segment of 3. Once you're done with that, okay, just W and come out of it. So hit your move tool and come out of the tool. Then modeling, go to back to your objects mode. So we should have this kind of shape now, kind of rounded on this section. If we press 3, we'll have a smoother um, edge here. I'll just press 1 back. Okay, now we want to create the buttonholes according to our profile. So we're going to have cylinders, 4 cylinders. So create a cylinder on the software, create a cylinder, and we want to also rotate it, but want to rotate it along the x-axis as well, 90 degrees. So I'm switching between my attribute editor, the first tab, where I have rotate 90 degrees on the X. That's the first tab on the X, on the rotate bar is X axis, so 90 degrees. So that the cylinder is facing where the eye is facing. And then I want to scale the cylinder to match the size of that hole. So you might need to zoom in on your in your front view to be sure that is matching that hole. Yep, something like that. Then I'm going to scale it on the y-axis as well to make it smaller in size. Forward. I'm having this option here. So once you have the cylinder that is equal to the size of the hole, just hold shift and make copies to fill up the other parts of the holes. Hold shift and drag to make copies that will occupy the other parts of the hole. So we should have 4 cylinders running across that uh, circle there. Let me turn on wireframe shaded so you see. There are 4 cylinders being attached to the bottom section there. Bevel. No, he's in the bevel section. Um, so we're going to use Boolean to create the holes. Let me create a sphere and a cube so that I will use it to describe um, the Boolean, the different Boolean techniques here. Oh, this screen should stop blinking. All right. Yeah. Okay, so under Boolean is a mesh property, that it has to work on the objects as a whole. So for it to work, we have to have both objects selected, and there's the is important how the order in which you select them is important. Let me just the order in which you select them. So if I select the cube first and the circle last, meaning the sphere, the sphere is green, the cube is white, meaning the cube is the first thing selected. So under my Boolean tools, I have three basically, but they have a way they work. Even though union is to combine both of them, um, difference is to subtract the first from the second, and intersect is to keep where they converge, where the two shapes or more shapes converge at. So right now I selected the cube first before the circle. If I go to difference now, the circle is the one that is used to cut a hole in the cube because it was the last one selected. So if I do it reverse, select the circle and then select the cube and then create the Boolean difference. The cube is now used to create a hole in the circle. So like I said, it's important which is selected first, because the one that is selected first is the object that is staying. The one that is selected last is the cutting object, the one that will be used to cut. So why I brought that up is because right now we want to create a Boolean, and we have four shapes here. We have four shapes. We have four cylinders, and then we have the disk. Now, we won't want to do Boolean one by one. You can actually do it one by one. It's just that it might be stressful for you if you have more than four objects. Maybe you have 20 objects now they want to cut through a shape. So one of the easy things to do, first of all, is the cutting objects that you are going to use. You can combine them to become one object, so that the software sees them as one object. So simply just select all the cylinders and combine them to make them one object, right? On your shelf, this is the combine tool, just in case you don't go to your modeling toolkit or your mesh objects. So we just combine them and make them one object. So it's not all. Yes, it's first combine so that they are all one. So now I want to use them to cut a hole in this disk. Also, firstly, I have to select the disk. Remember, the object that is staying is the one I'll select first. So select the disk, then shift and select the cylinder. Cylinder is now the second object. So Maya will use that to create the hole on the disk. So I can now go there, mesh, booleans, and subtract, and it will now use it to create the holes on the disk. Okay? Funny news, yeah. Yeah. So you said mesh boolean. Yes. It says boolean different. Mesh, booleans. This difference now, that's the subtract difference. Yeah, cutting out the second object from the first object. Yeah, you combine the cylinder. I combine the cylinders first, so they are seen as one object. Just the cylinders, or not with the disc. Okay, so our button eye for the right eye is done. So if you want, you can stick it to the body or just let it hang out that way. So now, because we don't have an actual reference on how the button is lapping on the eye of this, as in on the face of this our bunny, you can just wing a lap, as in just rotate it to be stuck to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be glued to the face of the body. But if you want it to be glued to the face of the body, then we'll just deform it so that it kind of slips rather than being flat like this. It just rests on the surface of the body here. So if you want to do that, if that is your option, want to do that, you can just use your soft selection and deform it to attach to the attach the edges to the shape of the what they call it now, the shape of the body. So depending on whatever option you have, it's not a must, but you can do that if you want. You can do that if you want to. That's kind of just let it fall into the. Yep. How do I get? I'm using the soft selection and I'm just moving. That's what I'm doing now. Let me let me undo what I did. Right. So this is how the stuff is, right? It's kind of just here. So I said because we don't have a reference of how it is attached to the head of the surface, we can determine to leave it like this or attach the bodies, as in the just as in melt it into the skin of the head. One way of doing it is to use soft selection, picking vertices of faces and dragging it um, organically together. If I don't use soft selection and I move these faces now, it will move very, let me go to perspective view. It will move very rigidly. You will have all these very sharp edges, and that's not what I want. So we're using soft selection so that when I move, you can see it's moving organically. So it's making it just deform into the part of the surface I want it to be without causing too much damage. That's what I'm doing basically. I'm just using soft selection and wrapping it on the body. But like I said, it's not an absolute must that you do this. You don't necessarily have to do this. You can ignore this and just leave it the way it is. Because you can escape with the fact that there's no reference telling you how it's actually attached to the face. So any way you want to do it is up to you. So I'll just leave it like this for now. We still have the nose and this guy here. This we can form with uh, you can use polygons, that's cylinder. You can also use curves, that's for your these your NURBS curves, and creates the eye patches and stuff. You can use your NURBS curves and do that. Then the nose as well and the mouth, you can also do that. Since this mouth is not going to be open, so there's no need to do some serious modeling for that. So if I'm going to use curves for this guy, I might make this surface live. So turn it to make it live. There is an option Maya has that allows you draw along the surface of an object. So right now, if I take my curves and just draw a line like this, it's not going to be attached to the surface of my object. It's just going to be somewhere in there, right? It's not really going to be attached to the surface of my object. But if I make this object live by clicking on the last magnet tool here, I can draw on my surface. Okay, I can make some drawings like this so that those things attach to my surface. So that's technically what I can do. I can also use quad draw to make points. But for simplicity, we can just use cylinders and make them that way. So anyone that's faster for you, they are all useful. All the techniques I just mentioned are useful. So depending on which one you want to use. So for now, since I'm dealing with polygons, I'll just stick with cylinder, scale the cylinder down enough to look like as thin as what I want it to be. I'll probably add some subdivisions on the heights so that it's more flexible, maybe like 8, and then just attach it for the separate points here, like just to create that shape. So just something like that, and hold shift and make here. So this one, make this copy here, then I can duplicate that shift as well, and rotate it this way. I will just stylize this one and push it or mirror it to the other part of the eyes. So I'm just using different tools to achieve certain results in the modeling so that we can all have uh, similar concepts to work with, right? So for this, I think I'll just rotate it along this axis. And this guys, just move them back, rotate them. Then we can now use our deforming and adjust it to or attach it to the head the way we want it to be attached to the head. Okay, so now it's to just fix it here, fix it to this eye. I can still use my soft selection and do that. I can still select portions of it. Just that mirror. Okay, so just more what do you call it? Deform it to get to what you want it to achieve and your design, however you want it to be, and then let it just be attached to the body of the rabbit in any way you like it. Just put it on the eye of the rabbit or on the side of the rabbit, and something like that. So all those things, right? So just have something along those lines. For the nose, you can use a cone. For the nose, you can use a cone. You can use uh, circle will be too plenty. Full. I think cone is still fine. You can still use a cone. You can use a polycone. You can use I really circle will be plenty work. So let's try with cone. Use a cone, scale down the cone, rotate it to 180 degrees along the blue axis, as is the axis, 180, so that it's upside down. In your attribute editor, you can add some segments to it so that you can use it to um, trace out the structure of the nose, that's in the bending part of the nose, and reduce the subdivision on this guy. It's not too plenty work, too much um, divisions. Let's just do 8 and subdivisions 4 and scale it down to match this. And then I use my vertices and start playing with this guy. Let me come back here. So there's my cone. Let me bring it forward. That's inside. Go to vertex and scale down in this level. Select this, and scale like this, and scale like this, and scale like this. Then from the side view, I'll just generally scale them flat like that. And pick out certain stuffs to create some level of bulge. The nose. Yeah. So just that one for the nose. Create the nose aspect. All right, so I won't do more than this one, or I won't add another one. Just, hmm. Okay, so I'll just play around with this guy like this as it is. Save and increment In Maya, if you are working on a model and you want to save different stages of your work so that in case you want to revert back to an original state or the state before that state that you are in, under your file, you click on increment and save. So it will save another state of this object. That's the present state it is now, but it will still have the previous state it was when you opened the file. All right, so this guy is up and ready for the animation I'm going to do. So a few things I'm going to do next to this is we're going to create parenting concepts. I'm going to make parent-children relationships from all this so that when we move one thing, it moves along with the others. So for the contents of the head, that's the eyes, the nose, and all the patches. I'll select all of them and select the head last, and then press P to parent them to the head. Then I can rename that one as head. So that wherever the head moves, the rest move along with it. Then the head should also be parented to the torso. Same with the hands. The hands should be parented to the torso. So select the hands, select the torso, press P, select the head, select the torso, press P. In the ears should also be parented to the head, press P, right. So that everything is working together as one unit. So save that again. Okay, with that done, we want to see how we will make this robot. So quickly save your work and let's start out a new project with this robot. Inside new model, I will have limited talking time because the processes are similar to what we have just done. So when I say I'll have limited talking time is I won't explain everything I'm doing, but I'll just talk about the stitching part. So I'm going to start a new project. I've saved this one. So I'm going to start a new scene. Let me save. Oh my grid. Just change this color to something I like. Okay, so just for easy remembrance, if you need to stitch something, let me create a sphere and a cylinder. So I'm going to make cuts on the sphere and then stitch the cylinder to it. All right, so I have my sphere, I have my cylinder, but I want to cut a hole in my sphere and attach a cylinder to it. So imagining this is uh, a body part or a part of a body, and I want to cut off these holes and stitch this guy to those holes. I will need typically 8 points on my cylinder. That's why when we are creating hands or feet, that's the length of the hands of the feet, we basically will start with 8 subdivisions along the axis point. So I'll make this 8, and then I could, let me just make 5. It's not really that important. I want to stitch them to this sphere. Let me make this sphere kind of like 12 by 12. Yep, kind of like 12 by 12. So imagining this is a hand and I want it stuck to this part of the cylinder, coming to the sphere. So I will first of all create the hole where this guy will be stuck to here. So let me use the face mode. I'll just select this 1, 2, 3, 4 faces. I think I'll make an inset edge loop. So I'll just make an insert, something like this, right? And scale it just to create a more easy direction. And then I'll just delete that space there. So just delete it. So now I want to stitch this guy to this space or to that hole. I want to attach it to that hole there. So I think I will just divide this guy into half so I will see everything I'm doing very well from the front view. Yeah, to the side. Let me cut this half. Right. So I can see on the inside here. Then on this cylinder as well, it already has 8 patches. Okay. I can cut this hole as well. Cut a hole here with the faces. Just select all these faces and cut a hole. I will still have eight um, 8 nodes there. In order to create a stitch or an effective stitch, I need to combine these two objects. The software has to see them as one object. Otherwise, it won't really work the way I want it to. So I will select both of them and combine. Combine. Now they are seen as one object. Put together as one. It's at this point now that I can create the stitch. So stitching, you can stitch edges, you can stitch vertices. Those are the most common ways to stitch, but the most accurate is vertices. So in my vertex mode, I want to use target weld. That's to me my best stitching tool. The weld, target weld is also in our shelf here. You simply determine the vertices that will be stitched, or I say stitched, and how they will connect to themselves. So basically, if I drag from the cylinder to the sphere, the cylinder vertex will drag out to meet the sphere. But if I drag from the sphere to the cylinder, this will drag towards the sphere. So I think that's what I want to do. I want to drag from here to the sphere. So I just click on the vertex and attach it with my target weld selected, attach it, and then it connects to that vertex there. Connects, 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 and I go around. I connect this, I come here, I connect this, then the last one might need to go on the inside, and then I connect this, this. And that's all. Once that's done, this object is now stitched together. So if I smooth it out, it forms a seamless connection. Okay, so that's why we stitch, so that we can have seamless connections between multiple objects. By the time we now add our smooth or subdivision surfaces, it makes it look even nicer. Okay, I hope we got that. All right. So now we want to create a new model, and obviously we are going to stitch some parts afterwards. I'm going to delete this. Press home to get back to where I started. Panels, I want to use the same panel layout I did. So 3 panes, split left. Um, Actually, let me do, all right. So here I'll change this to fronts and change this to perspective. Right. I need to add the image plane of the robots that I'm going to use. Um, I don't think it's part of my collection, so let me just locate it. What is the name of that file? Okay, 777. Where is 777? I've seen 7, but I wasn't 777. There's something else before 7. 777 DAFO. See you. Where did I get you from? Hang on. Let me confirm where I got it from. The Maya references. Yeah, this guy. Right. I need to convert it to a JPEG. Let me edit it with Paint. Let me save it as a JPEG. Stop blinking now. Right, so that's him. I want to add him to my front view and my side view. Yeah. So we do the same thing that we've done before, which is align the front view to the front and align the side view to the side. So everyone should do this one, and I will come and check what you did. I won't teach this one. I will just come and observe what you're doing and make it larger. Make it larger. Wow. Right. Move it back. Move it back. Okay. That's on the video, so I don't see it. So before I start, I'll save this as robot. Save this thing robot, robot one. So do whatever you need to do to get it. I'm going to come after 5 minutes. I'm going to come and see what you've done. This is classwork. It's not a teaching. So if you're using cylinder, you can use round cap or just use it the way it is. Remember to turn this place to X-ray so that you can see through. So I can see through the model. So turn your objects to X-ray in the viewport so that you can see through. Let's leave it there. And I should move you. This button, I'll go to shading and turn on X-ray. Mm. So, left part of this divisions here. I'm going to put the level for each division. Okay. So this is cylinder. So I guess for the cube as well. Stretch out my cube. Mark you. Using cube. I'm using a very unorthodox method, so not found. Using cubes very, very difficult. And that's on the other hand easier to manipulate. First of all, I can turn this to apps. So it uses so it go. Let's go here. Come over to what you do.